The video ended, but the comments section exploded with responses. People shared their own stories of difficult choices, moments when they'd stood their ground or times they wished they had. The video had touched a nerve. I hadn't expected such a response when I first decided to share my story. It had been Emma's idea, actually. She'd found me one night staring at an old email from Sarah, lost in thought about how different things might have been. "Dad, you always tell me that our stories matter," she'd said, perched on the arm of my chair. "Maybe yours could help someone else." So here I was, 3 videos in, sharing the moments that had shaped my life as a single father trying to navigate work, parenting, and the complicated space between. The following week, I received an email that stopped me in my tracks. It was from a young account executive at a firm across the country. "I watched your video last night," he wrote. "This morning, I was in that exact situation with my supervisor during a business trip. I remembered what you said about integrity in the shadows. I found another hotel. It was inconvenient and my boss was furious, but I slept well. Thank you for giving me the words I needed in that moment." I showed the email to Emma over breakfast. At 13 now, she was beginning to understand more about the adult world and its complexities. "See, Dad? Your story mattered to him," she said, stealing a piece of bacon from my plate. "Seems that way," I replied, smiling at her casual theft. "Do you ever regret it? Standing up to Sarah that night?" Emma asked, suddenly serious. I considered the question carefully. "There are plenty of things I regret in life, Em. Moments I wish I could do over. But that's not one of them." She nodded, satisfied. "Good. Because that's the dad I know." The truth was, that night had been a turning point in more ways than one. It wasn't just about refusing to cross a line with Sarah or protecting my professional boundaries. It was about deciding what kind of example I wanted to set for Emma, even when she wasn't watching. Especially when she wasn't watching. 2 years after my promotion, Richard retired and named me as his successor. The day I moved into the CEO's office, I hung a small framed photo on the wall, not of corporate achievements or industry awards, but of Emma and me building a sandcastle at the beach. A reminder of why integrity mattered. Sarah and I maintained a respectful professional relationship. Her consulting firm became one of our trusted partners, and occasionally we found ourselves presenting together at industry events. The awkwardness of that night faded into something like mutual respect. We'd both learned something valuable, if in different ways. Life continued to present its challenges. Emma entered her teenage years with all the drama and emotion that entailed. There were slammed doors and tearful reconciliations, arguments about curfews and boys and social media. Through it all, I tried to be the father she deserved, imperfect but honest, strict when necessary but always, always in her corner. On her 16th birthday, Emma asked for a special dinner, just the 2 of us. Over pasta at her favorite restaurant, she handed me a small wrapped package. "What's this?" I asked. "It's your birthday. I'm supposed to be giving you gifts." "Just open it," she insisted. Inside was a simple silver keychain with an engraved compass. "It's to remind you that you've always pointed me in the right direction," she said, suddenly shy. "Even when I act like I don't want guidance." I held the compass tightly, fighting back emotion. "I don't always know the right way, Em. But you always try to find it," she said simply. "That's what matters." Later that night, after Emma had gone to bed, I sat on the porch thinking about the long, winding path that had led us here. The grief of losing her mother, the struggle to rebuild, the night in that hotel lobby when everything could have gone so differently. I thought about the thousands of people who had watched my video, who had reached out with their own stories of standing firm when it would have been easier to bend. How strange that one small moment of private integrity had rippled outward in ways I never could have anticipated. The compass keychain caught the moonlight as I turned it over in my hand. Emma was right, I didn't always know the right direction. But I had learned to trust the internal compass that guided me through the difficult choices, the one that always pointed toward the kind of father, the kind of man, I wanted to be. And in the end, perhaps that was the most important lesson of all, that our lives are shaped not by the grand, public gestures, but by the quiet, private choices we make when no one is looking. That integrity isn't about perfection, it's about intention, about trying to align our actions with our deepest values, even when it costs us something. As the channel grew and more people shared their stories, I realized we were building something meaningful, a community of people committed to living with intention and integrity, to making choices they could be proud of in the light of day. Emma graduated high school with honors and headed off to college with dreams of becoming an environmental lawyer. On the day we moved her into her dorm room, she hugged me tightly before saying goodbye. "Thanks for showing me what matters, Dad," she whispered. As I drove home alone, I thought about that night in the hotel lobby once more. How close I'd come to compromising, how easy it would have been to take the path of least resistance. And how that one moment of choosing right over easy had altered everything that followed. Sometimes the most profound changes in our lives don't announce themselves with fanfare. They arrive in quiet moments of choice, in hotel lobbies and late-night conversations, in the private decisions that reveal who we truly are when no one else is watching. And sometimes, the most important person we need to be honest with is ourselves. The channel continued to grow beyond anything I could have imagined. What started as a single video about a pivotal moment in my life evolved into a platform where people from all walks of life shared their own stories of integrity, difficult choices, and moments that defined them. 5 years after that first video, I found myself sitting in a green room, waiting to go on a national morning show. The producer had discovered my channel after it hit 1 million subscribers, and now they wanted to feature my story as part of a segment on everyday ethics. 3 minutes until you're on, Mr. Bennett, an assistant said, poking her head through the door. I nodded, adjusting my tie nervously. Emma had helped me pick it out. "Blue brings out your eyes, Dad," during a video call from her law school apartment the night before. My phone buzzed with a text from her, "Knock 'em dead. The whole study group is watching. Love you." I smiled, typing back a quick, "Love you too," before pocketing the phone. The interview went by in a blur. The host was kind, asking thoughtful questions about that night at the hotel and how it had changed my life's trajectory. "What would you say to someone facing a similar situation?" she asked as our time drew to a close. I thought for a moment. I'd tell them that the hardest part isn't making the right choice in the moment, it's living with the consequences of the wrong one afterward. The temporary discomfort of standing your ground is nothing compared to the permanent weight of compromising who you are. After the show, my inbox flooded with messages. One in particular caught my attention, from Richard Mercer, my former CEO who had since retired to Florida. "Saw you on TV this morning," he wrote. "Reminded me why I chose you as my successor. There's something I never told you. The night before I offered you the regional director position, Sarah came to my office and told me everything. She admitted she'd been testing you, seeing if you were someone who could be manipulated. When you walked away, she realized you were exactly the kind of leader the company needed. Your integrity didn't just save your self-respect that night, it revealed your true character to everyone watching." I sat back, stunned. All these years, I'd thought Sarah's recommendation had been born from reluctant respect. I never imagined the entire situation had been a test, one designed to reveal exactly who I was when faced with temptation. That evening, I called Emma to tell her about the interview and Richard's revelation. "So it was all a setup?" she asked, sounding as surprised as I felt. "Apparently so. Does that change how you feel about it?" I considered her question carefully. "No," I said finally. "Because I didn't know it was a test. As far as I was concerned, it was a real choice with real consequences. The fact that I was being evaluated doesn't change the integrity of the decision. That's why your videos resonate with people, Dad," Emma said. "You're authentic. You made that choice for yourself and for me, not for some corporate advancement strategy." She was right. The power of that moment hadn't been in its outcome but in its intention, in choosing to be someone I could respect, regardless of who was watching or what I might gain or lose. As the channel approached its 6th anniversary, I received an unexpected email from a literary agent interested in turning my stories into a book. "People need these reminders of everyday courage," she wrote. "Especially now." The book, Integrity in the Shadows: How Our Private Choices Shape Our Public Lives, became a bestseller, leading to speaking engagements at corporations, universities, and even a TED Talk that went viral. Through it all, I remained grounded by my relationship with Emma, who had graduated law school and was making her own mark on the world. She'd joined an environmental law firm and was already building a reputation as someone who couldn't be bought or intimidated, a chip off the old block, as my mother liked to say. On a crisp autumn evening, as I sat on my porch reviewing notes for an upcoming speech, my phone rang. It was Sarah. "I saw your TED Talk," she said without preamble. "It was excellent." "Thank you," I replied, surprised to hear from her after nearly 2 years of silence. "I'm calling because I'm teaching a business ethics course as an adjunct at the university, and I was wondering if you'd be willing to speak to my students." I smiled at the irony. "You want me to talk about that night at the hotel?" "Among other things," she said. "That moment changed both our lives, Jason. I've built my consulting practice on ethical leadership principles, and it all started with you saying no." We arranged the details, and a month later, I found myself standing before a lecture hall of eager business students, with Sarah introducing me as someone who taught me the true meaning of leadership integrity. As I shared my story once more, I looked out at the young faces watching me, future leaders, managers, and decision-makers who would face their own ethical crossroads. I hoped that when their moments came, they would remember that character isn't determined by what we do when everyone is watching, but by the choices we make when we think no one is. After the lecture, Sarah and I had coffee in the campus cafe, reminiscing about our time at Meridian and catching up on our current lives. "I never properly thanked you," she said as we were preparing to leave. "For what?" "For reminding me who I wanted to be." She smiled, a genuine warmth in her eyes that I'd never seen during our working years. "That night was a turning point for me too, you know. Watching you walk away made me question every compromise I'd made in my career." On the flight home, I thought about how a single moment of clarity had created such far-reaching ripples, not just in my life or Emma's, but in Sarah's, in Richard's, and now potentially in the lives of those students. Emma met me at the airport, insisting on driving me home despite the late hour. As we pulled onto the highway, she glanced over at me. "I've been thinking about starting my own channel," she said. "About ethical dilemmas in environmental law. What do you think?" I smiled, touched that my daughter wanted to follow in my unexpected footsteps. "I think you have important things to say, and people will listen." "I learned from the best," she replied, reaching over to squeeze my hand. As we drove through the quiet night, I reflected on the strange, beautiful journey that had brought us here. How one moment of choosing integrity over expediency had unfolded into a life I never could have imagined, one richer and more meaningful than any I might have had otherwise. The compass keychain Emma had given me years ago still hung from my keys, a constant reminder that even when the path forward isn't clear, we always have an internal guide pointing us toward our better selves. In the end, perhaps that's all integrity really is, the courage to follow that inner compass, even when the journey takes us to uncomfortable places. To choose what's right over what's easy. To be the person our loved ones believe us to be, especially when they're not watching. And in a world that often seems to reward compromise and expediency, that might be the most revolutionary act of all, to stand firm in who we are and what we believe, one choice at a time. As Emma pulled into my driveway, she turned to me with a smile that reminded me so much of her mother. "You know what I think, Dad? I think sometimes the universe puts us exactly where we need to be, even when it feels like everything's going wrong." I thought about that hotel lobby, about the frustration I'd felt when faced with the room shortage, about how what had seemed like a problem had actually been an opportunity to define who I truly was. I think you might be right, I said, gathering my bags as we headed inside. The real question is whether we're brave enough to make the right choice when those moments find us. And in that simple truth lay everything I'd learned, everything I'd tried to teach Emma, and everything I hope to share with the world, that in the quiet moments when no one is watching, we have the chance to become who we truly want to be. One choice at a time.